Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
The central issue for Donald Trump in this campaign, the one that began the campaign, is the issue of open borders. Now, this issue is going to be coming before the American voters in about a month, but it went before the Hungarian voters this last weekend. As The Guardian reports, Hungary's refugee referendum was not valid after voters stayed away. They point out that although 98% of the people voted to stop the open border situation, they only had 44% of eligible voters, according to their count, that showed up for the election. So constitutionally, the referendum is not valid. But think about that. 98%, the people who were interested enough to show up and vote, 98% of them said, we do not want to have the great people replacement. And that is precisely what is happening, folks. We need to understand what is behind this. We need to understand this is a tool of the globalists, a tool of the corporatists to take over our country, to create a great people replacement, to create a conflict of cultures, to create chaos, as they've done throughout the Middle East. Now, to give you an idea of how this is going to play out, let's take a look at a couple of lawsuits recently, a couple of disputes at different factories. Now, the first one goes back to January 28th, 2016. And this was 53 Muslim workers in Wisconsin at a place that manufactured lawnmowers and snowblowers. Okay, and both of these disputes are about unscheduled prayer breaks. Can they take Muslim prayer breaks and shut down the factory during the day? The Muslims demand that they be allowed to do this. And of course, we've had Bill Clinton go to Detroit and brag about the fact that we could bring in Muslim migrants to rebuild Detroit. Hey, we got all these empty homes because Democrat policies have destroyed Detroit. They have destroyed the automobile industry. And so let's bring in people from Muslim countries and let's rebuild Detroit. How's that going to work? You know, what would Henry Ford do with his production lines if people were to take the kind of breaks that they're talking about? What are they talking about taking? Well, they're talking about taking 5 15 to 20-minute breaks per day. Think about that. 5 15 to 20-minute breaks per day, per workday. Now, the other place, before we move on, there actually resulted in a lawsuit. This first one just happened back in January of this year, January the 28th. This other one happened way back in 2008. There were 80 Somalis, Muslims, at a meatpacking plant in Nebraska. They were fired in 2008 because they wanted to do this. Now, they started a lawsuit 2 years later, so there hasn't been a lawsuit on the Wisconsin case yet because that just happened in January. It took 2 years for the meatpacking plant lawsuit to be filed. Again, 80 Somali Muslims. These are the people, remember Mogadishu, remember Black Hawk Down? Remember the fact that there is a war going on in Somalia between the Muslim Arabs connected to Al-Qaeda and the black indigenous population there that is really sub-Saharan. That's what's going on. That's largely Christian in that country. They're being slaughtered. But let's talk about this lawsuit. This was a lawsuit that was filed by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the government, against the factory, Swift Meatpacking Plant, alleging religious discrimination. And of course, this is just for taking time off to do multiple prayers during the day. It's not saying that they can, I don't know what would happen if the meatpacking plant wanted to start packing pork, for example. Would these Somali Muslims be able to dictate to them that they would not be able to handle any pork processing? I don't know. But let's take a look at what this amounts to. In one case, we've got a meatpacking plant. In another case, we have an assembly line for lawnmowers and snowblowers that is shut down. Think about how much time this is. If you've got 15-minute breaks, 5 of them during the day, which is what they're asking for, that's an hour and 15 minutes off of an 8-hour workday. What if it's 20 minutes, okay? That's an hour, 40 minutes off of an 8-hour workday. That works out to 8 hours and 20 minutes a week. It works out to 33 hours and 20 minutes per month. It works out to 10 and a half weeks over the course of a 50-week year. Think about that. They're demanding that they get 10 weeks off so they can pray on the job. That's what that amounts to. Can you maintain a factory like that? No, you can't. That is the absurdity of what we're seeing. That is what is fundamentally beneath this clash of cultures. We have to understand that Islam is not simply a religion. It is also a culture, and it is a legal system. It is a theocracy. It is an intolerant theocracy. It is directed against the very same people that Hillary Clinton has carved out as her demographic base: homosexuals and women. The Muslim theocracy has brutalized those two groups of people simply because of who they are. And yet these are the people that Hillary Clinton goes to for money, on the one hand, in the Muslim countries, and then here in America, those same people who will be the single most identified victims of a Muslim theocracy are the ones that she turns to for support, who blindly vote for her. What is America going to look like under Hillary Clinton? We're going to see more authoritarian policies, more violations of our individual rights and civil liberties than we have ever seen before. Take a look at some of the things that are coming out just in the realm of education. Just last week, we had Obama's education secretary saying that he is concerned about homeschooling. Why is he concerned about homeschooling? It's very touching, especially considering the fact that so many people who go to government schools come out functionally illiterate. Why would he be concerned about that? Well, he doesn't think they're getting exposed to a broad enough range of instructional experience. And of course, this is a guy who is a Common Core activist. His name is John King. He said he was concerned some home-educated children were not getting the breadth of instructional experience that they would get at a traditional school. What might that be? Well, we got a glimpse of that this week. We see a Texas lawmaker, State Senate Criminal Justice Committee Chairman, Senator John Whitmire, out of Houston, said on Thursday that he plans to file a bill that will mandate that schools teach students how to behave when they get stopped by officers for traffic violations or for any other reason. You know, you just want to stop people for stop and frisk, or you just want to shake them down and see what kind of fines you can get from them. Well, you know, they need to be able to learn how to survive. They need to be able to learn the proper etiquette to submit to their masters. You know, we see that the police are there to protect and serve. Now they have made no bones about who they're there to protect and who they serve. And this is the thing that should concern all of us. He said, increased training and education for both peace officers and our students will help foster positive relations and interactions. They're not going to train the police to be less aggressive. They're not going to change their mission to stop harassing people for petty fines. No, they're going to teach your children to be obedient to them. Look at what's going to happen to transportation. We saw this last week. A Senate bill will mandate TSA involvement in surface transportation security. Understand, TSA has been transportation. It didn't say anything about airports. And this is not even a Democrat. This is a Republican, Senator John Thune. And he used the opportunity of bombs being found near a train station. It only took him 2 days to go in and introduce this legislation, because any threat, real or imagined or false flag, will be used to expand the reach of the police state. They say they're going to use the TSA they're going to apply it to mass transit, to passenger rail networks, and to public areas of other transportation systems. Understand that as they try to move to autonomous cars, as they ban human drivers, they will be creating a security state around all movement. When you start a war against a people, one of the first things you need to do is control the means of transportation. And we know what the end game of this war is. The end game is Agenda 21, locking the people into high occupancy, small, concentrated population centers in the cities. That's precisely what they're going to do. The way they're going to do it is with the roads, with the TSA controlling, choking off your transportation and your freedom of movement. And then as we look at the war on drugs, the United Nations war on drugs, because that's where it came from, folks. It was the United Nations that created it, not Richard Nixon. We have followed their blueprint. We have followed their agenda, just as they have put out an Agenda 21 for our cities. In the war on drugs, we see the Attorney General admits that pot isn't a gateway drug, but prescription pills are. This is happening at the same time that they are trying to ban another popular plant, the Kratom plant. And we've had reports about that here at Infowars.com as well. What is the competition to Kratom, or what is Kratom the competition to? It is a competition to prescription drugs, opioids, okay? Very dangerous drugs that they're in competition to. This is the issue that we're faced with.
In the past decade, we have witnessed unparalleled scientific discoveries in the area of health. But no one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. DNA Force is one of the most expensive formulas to produce. Some of the ingredients in DNA Force are $12,000 a kilogram. We are using the coveted, patented, only American source of PQQ, CoQ10, and more. You want the best that's out there at the lowest price anywhere? Well, we're bringing you a total win-win. The ultimate value, cutting-edge, trailblazing game changer that also supports the InfoWar. We have produced a limited run of DNA Force, and it will take up to 12 weeks to produce more once we sell out. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139.